So let's talk a little bit more then about sort of the economic case and the challenges that we need to step up to, why this makes sense. In all the work that I've done in 25 years, remember I talked about my old job? Where can technology make a difference? And Naomi figured this out along with the pioneers of sort of the OU and NIACE ages ago. And that is the real value of technology in education is creating affordable access at scale to a quality education experience. That's the value proposition. The value proposition is about getting people access to a quality education experience in cost-effective ways that normally they wouldn't have access to. And what's fascinating is that's the whole history of my institution. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But that really is what I believe, from a digital literacy perspective, one of the great values of digital literacy is it allows you, like no other time in the history of mankind, to get access to a high-quality higher education experience in many ways. So hold on to that thought. So our collective challenge, sort of at a macroeconomic level, is there's absolutely no doubt that we need to educate citizens for new types of work. It's estimated that there's about 82% of the occupations in the developed world now require some type of digital literacy to be successful. One of the toughest questions I get asked as a Vice-Chancellor of the Open University is, Martin, how can you be an open university and stay on the bleeding edge of technology? Aren't you worried about leaving people behind? And trust me, ladies and gentlemen, it is an art form. Sunsetting and sunrising the technology that we use and knowing when to introduce it and when to take it away so that we minimize those that we leave behind is probably one of the toughest challenges that my folks have to deal with. But let me just turn that question around. Do you think we do our students any favor at all by not introducing them to technology and the digital age, which are basic survival skills in the world that we live in? So we err on the side of doing all that we can to make sure that we give them the preparation and the onboarding. But we fundamentally believe that from a digital literacy perspective, it is one of those survival skills of the 21st century. It's absolutely, digital literacy is key for a competitive workforce. I do worry. My last job took me to just about every place on the planet. And so I've experienced firsthand how other nations in the world are tooling and retooling their workforces. And I've got to tell you that we have to step up to the challenge of making sure that we refresh all of the generations of our populations with the skills that they need to fuel an innovation economy. So it's the only way forward for the UK, for Australia, for the United States, the three homelands I've had, is through innovation. The only way to innovate is through the appropriate use of technology. It's also about recognizing that this is probably one of the most important challenges we need to step up to. And that is, it's about transforming information into meaningful knowledge. Some of you may have read it back in the early 80s, a book by John Nesbitt called Megatrends. And as way back as that is now, I hate to admit it, John already started talking about drowning in a sea of information. Well, if John thought that he was drowning then, fast forward to where we are now. One of the great literacy skills that we need to be able to teach people is transforming information into meaningful knowledge. The day that Google became a verb, and the day that teachers started suggesting to our young people that Wikipedia was a trusted source of content, suddenly transformed the life of people forever. Because it's no longer about getting access to information, it's about being able to make sense of it. It's about being able to triangulate it. It's about being able to have enough of an education to understand whether what you are reading is actually the truth, and it actually draws into question, historically, the whole notion of trusted content and truth. Because how do you actually determine that now? It's about stepping up to the fact that learning in the workplace needs to become integral. Here's an interesting phenomenon for you. So 39% of all undergraduate students in the UK are part-time students, nearly 40%. And yet today our system excludes, from a funding perspective, from a loans perspective, nearly 40% of all of the undergraduate students. Our system is entirely engineered around a cohort of 18 to 21-year-olds. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's absolutely important, but it is not the way that we will remain competitive and effective on the world stage for whatever goals we set ourselves, be they social, be they economic, whatever labels you want to put on them. The ability for us to be able to leverage technology, to be able to provide opportunities for people to learn while they work, which is becoming more and more an economic necessity for people of all generations. Interesting factoid, the average age of an OU undergraduate now is 35, contrary to popular belief, and our fastest growing cohort intake in the last year and a half has been under 24-year-olds. And so this economic pressure that everybody is under, and technology is one of the few enablers that allow you to get people. They're like lifelines that you can throw to people to give them access to the learning as and when they need it to get access to higher education. One of the things that I'm really worried about when we think about digital literacy, flipping now and moving back to more those younger cohorts, although they're getting older and older every day, is what often gets referred to as the digital natives, the net generation. These young people that have grown up never knowing a world without the web, without cell phones, without SMS, without video on demand, without music on demand. And there is a crisis of relevance. 78% of 18 to 24-year-olds in the United States say that that having a graduate degree is critical to their success. Only 28% of them believe that the education they're getting is relevant. A 12-year-old the other day described going to school to me this way. He said, "You know what, Martin? It's just like being in an aeroplane. You sit down, you have to put all of your trust and confidence in somebody you don't know at the front of the plane, and they ask you to turn off all your electronic devices." We can laugh, but the world that we provide them from an education perspective, from a digital literacy perspective, it's not keeping up. And it's not just at a primary and secondary level, it's at a university level as well, because when we go out and we talk to these folks and we talk about what their values are things like autonomy, authenticity, connecting and sharing, creativity, individuality, and constant stimulation. Now, we can debate, and I'm sure we will, whether they are good values, but they are the values. That's their generation. That's their life. When we talk to them about their priorities, haven't changed too much. Friends, fun, music, real-time interaction, and self-presentation. Although I knew that the world had changed significantly when about 3 years ago in college surveys of undergraduates in the United States, they'd started to say that they preferred to spend more money on their cell phone bill than they did on beer. That changed the world forever for me in terms of the priorities of an undergraduate student. We look at their likes, devices, phones, identities, cool stuff friends like, new stuff, and their hates, complexity, bad design, cost, and things that get in the way of self-expression. So look at those themes: creativity, connecting and sharing, expression, real-time interaction. Now play back the experience that we often give to our people in the learning process, and the way that we present content, and the way that we present pedagogy, and the way that we weave technology in. And then compare that to what employers are saying they want from people. What they want from people is, they call them 21st century skills. They want problem solving, critical thinking, group collaboration, the ability to use technology appropriately, project management. And then ask yourself, boy, oh boy, is there any wonder why we've got a crisis of relevance? From a digital literacy standpoint, we had better step up and start realizing that this digital generation requires us to not throw out the magic of face-to-face interaction. The personal experience is the most valuable part of a higher education. So why waste it? Why waste it by doing things that can be done by watching a podcast or reading something or getting access to some information outside of those precious times where we get to spend doing this? Not so much me talking right now. You could have watched that as a video before you got here, but the magic of what will happen when Andrew and I get to start engaging with you. That's where the value is. That's where the promise of technology is.